Hello and welcome back to the channel. I'm Brittany.
I'm Steven.
And today we are doing a video type that we almost never do on this channel, but a lot of other people do, and that is a ranking video. Today we are ranking all 22 MCU movies.
So it is the entire Infinity Saga. We're going to rank them all from, in our opinion, worst to best. Now, our ranking is going to be a little bit different, I feel like, because we are ranking these movies based on our combined enjoyment factor. So that not only includes the overall quality of the film, but also just how much we enjoyed it. So obviously these are our opinions. You are welcome to talk to us in the comments about them, fight with us about it respectfully, but this is our ranking.
So, kicking off with what we view as the least enjoyable film in this franchise is The Incredible Hulk from 2008. I think that when you're doing a comparison of all of these films together, this one is very clearly the outlier. It doesn't really fit with all the rest. We have a different actor playing the Hulk in the rest of the series. The storyline doesn't really tie into the rest of the series, so it's just kind of a outlier just floating around there. It's also, like, not that great.
Next up at 21, we have Iron Man 2, and that one came out in 2010, and Iron Man 2 is just okay. I mean, I don't feel like any of these Marvel movies are necessarily, like, bad, but compared to a lot of them, Iron Man 2 just doesn't go as many places as you want it to. I don't think it progresses Tony's character as much as you'd like it to. It does introduce some fun elements like War Machine and the new Rhodey after they recasted him. But ultimately, I think this falls flat, especially comparatively with the other movies that came around the same time.
Next up at number 20 is Thor: The Dark World from 2013. And I feel like this one's not as bad now that I've rewatched it in the past year or so. But the first time watching it, I really didn't like it. I think Christopher Eccleston was wasted in this movie, which makes me so bitter. I think that now that the saga is completed, you understand the significance of that movie and why it had a place in the franchise. However, on an enjoyment factor, it's just pretty low for me.
And then at 19, we have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. This one came out in 2017, and while the first Guardians of the Galaxy was really good, I think they did some cool things in this film, and I think it kind of fell apart in some places too. Me personally, and I know both of us, have gotten a little tired of Star-Lord, aka Peter Quill. His character just doesn't do a whole lot for me. I guess I'm starting to get over the cocky asshole thing for superheroes. I get that some people can pull it off really well. I think Robert Downey Jr. does a really good job as Iron Man, but we also see him keep his sarcasm but not be as much of a dick, whereas Star-Lord remains that kind of character. And while it's fun meeting his father, played by Kurt Russell, I just don't think this one always follows through on its themes or ideas as well as some of the other movies on this list.
Coming in at number 18 is Doctor Strange from 2016. I do enjoy this movie. I enjoy most of the movies on this list. However, I think comparatively with the rest, again, it's the cocky asshole thing that gets to me a lot in this movie. I just don't care. I do really like his development, especially as we get into Infinity War and where he's at and how much he has grown into his person. But I feel like you don't really see a lot of that in Doctor Strange until the very, very end. So most of the movie I'm just annoyed with him, which I understand is the point of the origin. I don't know. Enjoyment factor is pretty low for me.
And then we have Ant-Man and the Wasp. This one came out just last year in 2018, and this one as well is up there. It's not a bad film. I think there's a lot of fun in it. Paul Rudd and Evangeline Lilly do a great job as Ant-Man and the Wasp, and I love Evangeline Lilly's expanded role in this film because I think she was definitely underutilized in the first Ant-Man. However, the movie doesn't always follow through as much as it could have with the villain. It seems like it wanders a little bit, and I just end up not walking away as wowed from this one as I do with a lot of Marvel movies.
Coming in at number 16 is Thor from 2011. I think that this is probably one of the weaker first entries in a superhero's self-titled films. I just didn't enjoy it that much. I think that the team-up aspects of it are really fun. I think some of the other aspects are fun. I mean, getting introduced to Asgard is really cool. Loki is a highlight of this movie. But I think overall, Thor is so different than he was in that movie now, and I think that foundation is needed, but as a film, it's not all that rewatchable to me, and therefore my enjoyment of it is clearly pretty low.
He's so vanilla in the first one, whereas he actually gains character over time throughout his movies. Number 15 is Ant-Man, and this one is just a little... I feel like Ant-Man occupies a weird space in the Marvel Universe because his movies are always like coming after a huge Marvel like gut punch, and in a lot of ways he's kind of the MCU palate cleanser, and for that reason his adventures are fun and definitely have a place in the universe, but they don't do as much to progress the universe and to shape it as much as some of the other films. So this one's fun and enjoyable, especially as we get down, we're at 15 now, we're getting lower in the list. So all these films are good, but just not as good as some of the others.
Coming in at number 14 is Spider-Man Homecoming from 2017. I think a big factor of why this one isn't higher on our list is the Spider-Man fatigue. We have gone through 3 iterations of Spider-Man live action in our lifetime, and now we have 4 total live action and animated, but I think animated's on a whole nother level. So at this point, I'm just kind of tired of Spider-Man. I'm tired of the origin story. Give me 30 Spider-Man who has already grown up, done the whole Mary Jane relationship thing as like his own person. Go follow that comic storyline because it's amazing. I just was a little overdone with the Peter Parker in high school storyline yet again. I do think that it did impress me with the low expectations I had going in with that fatigue, and I do really enjoy it. And I think Tom Holland as Spider-Man is probably the best Spider-Man we've seen, who balances Peter Parker and Spider-Man so incredibly well, as much as I love Tobey Maguire in that role. So that's good, but it's just not higher due to so much Spider-Mans.
And then next up we have Thor Ragnarok. Now this one for a lot of people is probably going to actually be ranked higher, but for us it occupies this spot. I didn't love a lot of the flippancy of Thor Ragnarok, I think is the best way to put it. I really liked a lot of the ideas and a lot of the story beats, and I especially liked giving Thor more of a voice and personality and giving him a lot more humor and a much better sense of humor. But I think sometimes the movie kind of undercuts itself by having a really cool or serious moment and then, sliding a joke in there. Like someone loses an eyeball and then they slide a joke in right afterwards. And it's hard to take that seriously or feel the weight of some of the things in this film because of it.
I think that the rapid tonal shift for Thor as a character was very jarring for us personally. I think that if this film came after another buffered film that transitioned him into that space a little bit better, I might have enjoyed it more. But I think that is a big reason why I was just kind of put off by this one.
I would agree, because both him and the Hulk now have maintained a lot of that personality they gained in this film. So it felt like a rapid shift because of this film, but in future films, it lands really easily for me.
Coming in at number 12 is Avengers Age of Ultron from 2015. Now, if you had asked me a few years ago to do this ranking, I would have put this movie way lower, personally. But we recently rewatched this in preparation for an Endgame watch, and I enjoyed it a lot more as a rewatch this year. I'm not quite sure why, because I've rewatched it before, but I enjoyed it a lot more. I enjoyed the things that are set up in this a lot more. I think that it's just very different from the first Avengers film, and so this one just came across a little strangely. I don't know quite how to put my finger on it, but it's just not... It felt a little out of place for me at the time of originally watching it.
And then at number 11, we have Iron Man 3. This one closes out Robert Downey Jr.'s trilogy, and this is a really good film. I really love the way that this film focuses in on Tony as a character, specifically his PTSD following the Avengers fallout and him, going into space, almost dying, coming back, and having to kind of deal with that struggle and the PTSD and move into his own as Iron Man. I think this movie had a lot of big improvements about how it treated Pepper Potts, about how it treated Iron Man's character as a whole. It grounded Robert Downey Jr. and allowed, I think, the audience to feel a little bit more for his character, especially that I feel like around Iron Man 2 and stuff, you start to be like, who really cares about this guy at this point? So I think this movie was really good and deserves a spot at number 11.
Breaking into our top 10 list, we are going to start with Captain Marvel from 2019. This is our first female-led film in this franchise, which took entirely too long to get to, and I think Brie Larson was phenomenal in this role. I think that they hit it out of the park with a lot of the storytelling. I know a lot of people have mixed reviews about this movie, but I personally very much enjoyed it. I think both of us did, and that's why it ends up in our top 10.
I think all of these movies have such different tones, but this one was just such a fun ride, and I think that Captain Marvel is going to be a really exciting character for the future and deserves that number 10 spot. At number 9, we have the other Captain, Captain America, the First Avenger. This one came out in 2011. It's one of the first Marvel films, while they're still trying to figure out, I think, a lot about their tone and stuff. But I think this one, out of a lot of the earlier ones, stands so well on its own as a movie. You get to do a little bit of time travel going back to World War II with him, and it's just really cool to see Captain America go from being a scrawny dude up to being a superhero, and it's a really good film. I love this one, so it takes our number 9.
This film will always hold a special place in my heart because it introduces Peggy Carter, who's probably one of my top 5 favorite characters in the MCU personally, and I think she's extremely underrated and underused. But I love that she's introduced in this movie and continues to get more of her story told afterwards. Coming in at number 8 is Black Panther from 2018, and this is our first person of color-led movie in this franchise. Again, took entirely too long to get to, but this movie is such a powerhouse. It's basically another Avengers movie, kind of like Civil War is, and there is just so much happening in it. I think that the cast for this was absolutely phenomenal, and I think the visual effects were amazing, and the new introduction of this world building, it's kind of like Thor, where you get introduced to this whole other almost planet. It's not a planet, but it basically is with the way it's introduced and exists, and I just think that it was one of the most fun and original movie going experiences I've ever had.
I think it also has the strength of having a really strong villain in this one. Michael B. Jordan plays a great villain in Killmonger, and the MCU generally struggles with villains sometimes, especially for individual films, but I think that they created a villain that had a message that made you kind of go, huh, even though he was going about it the wrong way. And it was just a really good part of that movie and strengthened this above some of the others.
I personally think partially sympathetic villains are forever a strength in most films. I think that play on do they have a good point, do they not, is really strong and can be done incredibly well and adds a lot of interesting dynamics for the hero of the story. So I personally always like that kind of storytelling trope.
At number 7, we have the first Guardians of the Galaxy, Volume 1. This one came out in 2014, and this is just a really good space opera movie. It's really when Marvel started to step outside of its comfort zone and really say, let's start making some different types of movies. You know, we figured out our tones for the single superhero, and this is kind of a different challenge with an ensemble for a group that no one even knew about or cared about before this film. You know, their comics, a couple people liked, but they weren't anywhere near the top of the tier list of popularity, and James Gunn did a really good job with this film. I think everyone's balanced beautifully. It helps you know and fall in love with all these characters, and it's a great sci-fi film and a great addition to the MCU.
I absolutely love this movie. It is completely one of my favorites in this whole franchise because I am a Star Trek nerd at heart, and this reminds me so much of Star Trek world building with the different types of species on planets and the wit and the team up aspects. It's just dials in so much to my specific likes in sci-fi that it just hit it out of the park for me. Coming in at number 6 is the movie that started it all, and that is Iron Man from 2008. I guess technically Hulk did, but not really. Iron Man is the generally accepted first film in this franchise. So Iron Man, Robert Downey Jr. sets the tone for this entire 22 movie saga. I think this film sets the tone. It is such a strong opening for this entire franchise, and it shows this duality to our hero and how they're not perfect and how they have a ton of flaws. And the villain is really interesting. I mean, Jeff Bridges is fantastic in this, I think, and it's just such a strong film.
I actually saw a fun trivia that came out just the other day that apparently the first Iron Man barely even had a script. So a lot of the scenes are, Jeff Bridges was talking about, and he's like, a lot of these scenes, Robert Downey Jr. would just start going and riffing, and I had to like come along because there wasn't a script that told you exactly what to say in each scene. I think that's so cool.
Well, famously, the I Am Iron Man quote at the
Yeah.
end is ad-libbed. It was not in the script whatsoever. And it became a very important part of the saga.
Now it's iconic,
yes.
yeah. At number 5, it starts getting really difficult to list these. And at number 5, we have Captain America Civil War. I wasn't sure for the current state of the MCU how they were going to get Captain America and Iron Man to disagree and to get everyone to fight. It felt a little half-baked and a little early. However, I think they managed to do that in a really interesting way. I think they used Bucky's character as a really good crux to kind of drive home that separation between Iron Man and Captain America's ideals, and for them to clash over it. I really love the way they did that in this movie. I think you have the first appearance of Spider-Man in the MCU, which was very cool to see. And I think the airport battle scene will forever be one of the top fight scenes in the MCU, just to see our heroes go up against each other and battle it out. Very cool.
Coming in at number 4 is our very first Avengers movie from 2012. I think that this was so excellently done, and I think that Joss Whedon really was an excellent choice for this film despite his problematic elements that have now come to light. I think that he was great at bringing this team aspect together and adding the wit that really started being woven into the series with this movie. I think that that was just such an excellent director choice for it, and I think that the script was really fun. It brought in all these different storylines together that I really think was crucial for setting up future movies. I think that if this one hadn't been successful, we would not have gotten Endgame the way we did, with the way that all of these character storylines are being told. So it's very pivotal in this entire franchise, and I think that it's one of the most enjoyable, rewatchable movies in this franchise.
Then at number 3, we have Captain America, The Winter Soldier. This film by the Russo brothers really established them as like the Russo brothers and giving them claim to a lot of these big Marvel movies, which I'm so glad because they've done such a good job. And I think this is one of the first Marvel movies to really get a little grittier. I think they start showing some real-time like death on screen and stuff. I find that like the Avengers that we just talked about is like a pretty sterile movie. Like you never actually see anyone die. You see a lot of explosions and things flying around, but you never see anyone actually die. And then this one, like the Winter Soldier literally kicks a dude into a jet turbine and it never cuts away. And you're like, oh my gosh, what? I guess this is the kind of film. As well, the fight choreography is really cool. You start getting some long take action sequences. It's very cool to see Sebastian Stan actually be able to do those knife moves and flip the knives around and stuff. And I don't know, this movie is really good. And I think really starts to set Captain America's films apart from the rest of the MCUs.
Now, if you've been paying attention, you know that some very important 2 movies are left off this list so far, so you can kind of guess where we're going. Although we have been pretty mum about the order of these 2 picks when people have asked us.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously the 2 left off our list are Infinity War and Endgame. It is so hard to choose which one is better out of this, in my opinion, because they are absolutely 2 parts to a whole. With that being said, we have chosen Infinity War as number 2. I think that this movie sets up the end of this saga so incredibly well. It brings together this immense cast and these incredible amount of storylines that have to be blended together and put together, like we mentioned with the original Avengers, but to like a times 10 for this movie. And I think that it was so artfully done with such care and such love for not only the source material, but also for the fans who have been there along the way, and for comic book fans as well. I think it blends the casual moviegoer with the comic book fan, ultimate, like really deep in the trenches of lore person together really well for this movie, and it is an excellent setup to Endgame.
As well, they start to take some really bold moves. I think ending the film where they did was such a bold choice to have everyone dissolve, to have the team lose. It's really notably the first time in the MCU where everyone lost, and I think that's just such a cool moment to leave the theater being like, oh my gosh, what are they going to do with this? Because they just killed off everyone. And wow. Like, that was our reaction leaving, and it just pulls it above all the other Marvel movies for us. So, of course, at number 1, we have Avengers Endgame. This film, I think, does one of the best jobs of summing up a franchise, being able to play homage to all the things that came before it, and it really does. It plugs so many different films throughout this franchise. I think I could count at least 10 to 12 that they directly, pull things from for this film. And it just does such a good job of pulling everyone together and showing their strengths, their weaknesses, closing out people's arcs in satisfying ways, and showing what a lot of good writing and a lot of good ideas can do to bring a satisfying conclusion to what is the most epic film saga of all time. 22 films to finish out a story in. It's perfect for me.
It's also very interesting to me that this film chose, out of those ones to pull from so heavily of previous films, it chose ones that a lot of people chose to skip while watching all these movies. For people who kind of bounced around the franchise and watched the first ones in the series, or only the ones that were mega stars or whatever, they were missing out on quite a lot in this movie if they didn't watch those, such as Iron Man 3, I think is a really pivotal in this one, especially for Pepper's character. I think that Thor the Dark World is obviously very important for this. And also the Ant-Man movies. I know a lot of people skip the Ant-Man movies, and those are crucial for this movie. So I think it was a really interesting choice to throw back to those less successful movies. I don't really know a better way to say that, but you know what I mean. And I just think that was such an interesting choice, and it paid off well for us as people who have followed the entire franchise. And there you have it, our ranking of all 22 films in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Of course, like Steven mentioned at the beginning of the video, this is our list. It is not the ultimate list. It is not the correct list. It is not what everyone's going to agree with. You're probably sitting there being like, I disagree with so many things. Let us know down in the comments what you disagree with. We would love to discuss with you. Be nice, be respectful to not only us, but other people in the comments as well.
But whether you agree or disagree with our list, make sure you leave a like on this video. It really helps us out, lets us know that you enjoy these types of videos. Maybe we will rank more things if there is the interest for it and you guys want to see it. Make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss any of our future videos, and we'll see you guys on our next one.